Hello and welcome. I'm Michael Levitt, President of the American Society for Jewish Music. Tonight's program, Kristallnacht and its Aftermath, Remembering Terezin, is a tribute to the artists who perished in the Holocaust. In addition to our partners at the Center for Jewish History, the Leo Baeck Institute, and the YIVO Institute for Jewish Research, we are pleased to have the Mannes School of Music at the New School join us with performances by young artists from the Mannes Sounds Festival. This year's Kristallnacht commemoration is a virtual one, a streamed video program which will allow us to reach a global audience. It includes not only performances by the wonderful young artists from the Mannes School of Music, but also poetry readings and an excerpt from the highly acclaimed film, The Last Flight of Peter Gintz. In addition, you'll hear a message from Peter Gintz's sister, Chava Pressburger, a Holocaust survivor.
My name is Billy Weitzer. I'm the Executive Director of the Leo Baeck Institute. And on behalf of the LBI, I welcome you to our program, Remembering Terezin, a tribute to the artists who perished in the Holocaust. I'm pleased to join with organizations with whom we've always enjoyed working, the American Society for Jewish Music and their president, Michael Levitt, who regularly brings his musical expertise in joining forces with LBI. Also, the Center for Jewish History, which houses LBI and our partner organization. One of our partner organizations, YIVO Institute for Jewish Research, and the Mannes Sounds Festival. I'm sure that many of you are attending this program to commemorate the Holocaust in music. While that might sound contradictory to some, we all realize that the music of those who were murdered in the Holocaust can serve as a significant reminder of their creative genius and what was lost. Given that tonight marks the 82nd year since Kristallnacht, we should remember the contradictions that Jews faced in Germany and Austria on that night. After more than 5 years of discrimination and terror in Germany and 6 months in Austria, Jews still held out hope that the worst was over and that they would someday again be full citizens and thrive in what they considered their homeland. All who still believed that might happen were shocked by the destruction of synagogues and businesses, the arrests, and the loss of life on that evening. They truly understood then that matters had passed beyond the point of no return. While these sobering memories are on our minds, I hope that we can both enjoy the music and commemorate darker times.
Hello, everyone. I'm Jonathan Brent, Executive Director of the YIVO Institute for Jewish Research, and I want to say how pleased and honored we are to participate with the American Society of Jewish Music, the Leo Baeck Institute, and Mannes School of Music in this commemoration of the artists who perished during the Holocaust. It's one of the great tragic stories of the Jewish people that so many creative, inspiring, important artists, writers, musicians were lost to our people and lost to the world as a result of the catastrophe. Terezin is a particularly poignant example.
Thanks, Billy and Jonathan. Now I'd like to introduce Pavlina Delkovska, the moving force behind this year's Kristallnacht commemoration. Pavlina is the founder and artistic director of the Mannes Sounds Festival and chair of the piano department at the Mannes School of Music at the New School.
On behalf of the Mannes Sounds Festival team and Mannes School of Music at the New School's College of Performing Arts, I would like to welcome you all to this very special event, one of the most important and meaningful ones in our 21-year history. Our heartfelt thanks go to our partners at the Center for Jewish History, whose welcoming remarks you just heard, Michael Levitt, William Weitzer, and Jonathan Brent. I'm most grateful to my friend Laura Leong, a member of the American Society for Jewish Music's Concert Committee, with whom I first shared the idea for this project, and she presented it to Michael Levitt. Last but not least, I want to express our profound gratitude to the patrons of the Mannes School of Music and the festival, for their generosity and enthusiastic support. Remembering both Kristallnacht and the Holocaust, honoring its victims, is a moral obligation of every living human being, since to forget, to deny, to ignore this tragic loss of millions of people is not only immoral, but dangerous. Our tribute focuses on artists detained in Terezin, a town 30 miles from Prague, which the Nazis had turned into a Jewish ghetto and concentration camp. The 150,000 detainees included philosophers, scholars, scientists, composers, writers, and visual artists. Among them were 15,000 children. In spite of its remodeling and a propaganda film, The Führer Gives the Jews a City, made in time for a visit by the Red Cross in 1944, Terezin was in reality a holding place for detainees who were later sent by rail transport to their death in Auschwitz and other concentration camps. Very few survived. Tonight, we are paying tribute to 8 artists who perished in the Holocaust. Composer Victor Ullmann was deported to Terezin in 1942 and was gassed in Auschwitz in 1944. He was 46 years old. Composer and pianist Gideon Klein was deported to Terezin in 1941. He was transported to Auschwitz and then murdered in Fürstengrube in 1945. He was 26 years old. Hans Krass was deported to Terezin in 1942 and was gassed in Auschwitz in 1944. He was 45 years old. The poet and artist Peter Keen was deported to Terezin in 1941 and died in Auschwitz. He was 25 years old. Ilse Weber, a poet and songwriter, was deported to Terezin in 1942. She and her younger son were gassed in Auschwitz in 1944. She was 41 years old. Composer Erwin Schulhoff was deported to Würzburg concentration camp in 1941. He died there in 1942. He was 48 years old. Composer Pavel Haas was deported to Terezin in 1941. He was gassed in Auschwitz in 1944. He was 45 years old. The creativity in the camps have inspired contemporary composers Lori Lightman and John Califra to produce moving music in our time. Califra wrote the music for the film The Last Flight of Peter Ginz, an excerpt of which we will see later, as well as an opera based on the diaries of brother and sister Peter and Eva Ginz, who were deported to Terezin in 1942. Artist and writer Peter was gassed in Auschwitz in 1944. He was 16 years old. His sister luckily survived. She moved to Israel and became a well-known artist. We are most grateful to have a message for our audience from her. We are honored to present this tribute tonight and thankful both to be able to celebrate with you the creativity of these artists and to give life to the works of those who perished in the Holocaust. During his 2 years in Terezin, prominent composer Victor Ullmann, a student of Schoenberg, wrote vocal music, stage works, 3 piano sonatas, a string quartet, and completed an opera, The Emperor of Atlantis, or The Disobedience of Death. Among these were the 2 Yiddish songs which you'll hear. They were written in May 1944, shortly before he was transported to Auschwitz. was immensely talented pianist and composer who gave 15 solo recitals while in Terezin and wrote a number of chamber and solo piano pieces there. You'll hear tonight his piano sonata written in 1943. Hans Krasse was highly regarded early on as a composer. Deported to Terezin, Krasse was deeply involved in its cultural life, his children's opera, Brundibar, having 55 performances there. Dance for String Trio, which we are presenting tonight, was composed in Terezin and evokes the sound of the transports taking the detainees to Auschwitz. The Butterfly from the cycle I Never Saw Another Butterfly by contemporary composer Lori Lightman was inspired by the drawings and poems of the 15,000 children imprisoned in Terezin. Less than 150 survived. Peter Keane was a young, outstanding poet, writer, and artist who has produced over 1,000 drawings, sketches, designs, and paintings, poetry, and plays. He wrote the libretto of Victor Ullmann's opera, The Emperor of Atlantis. Tonight you will hear his poem from Terezin, Under the Walls of Babylon.
Ein Psalm aus Babylon zu klagen. Under the walls of Babylon, we sat and cried whenever we remembered home. Home. That is the rustling of the trees in the gardens. Huh. They are no more. Home. That is the breath streaming from the wide breast of the river. Ah. It is withered. Home. That is the silent windows in old grandiose edifices. They have been sanded. When I forget you, sweet yesterday, I will forget my hope. Under the walls of Babylon, we sat and cried whenever we looked around us. Piles of rubble and contaminated hills. Pain and suffering walk arm in arm through ragged streets because an aimlessly wandering lunacy slit open the body of the earth and rummages through its bowels for an oracle. Under the walls of Babylon, we sat and cried whenever we thought of the future. Not for our return will the shackle be removed from our feet, but, like sand before the fall storm, we will be swirled into the direction of the four winds, each one alone, into hostile deserts.
Songwriter and poet Ilse Weber wrote many poems in Terezin. One of them, The Letter to My Son, which you'll hear, was written after getting her oldest son to save it in Sweden. Her younger son was murdered with her in Auschwitz in 1944.
My dear boy, 3 years ago today, you were sent into the world alone. I still see you at the station in Prague, how you cry from the compartment and hesitate. You lean your brown head against me, and how you beg, let me stay with you. That we let you go seemed hard for you. You were just 8, small and delicate. And as we left for home without you, I felt my heart would explode. And nevertheless, I am happy that you are not here. The stranger who is taking you in will surely go to heaven. I bless her with every breath I take. Your love for her will not be enough. It has become so murky around us here. Everything has been taken away from us. House, home, not even a corner of it left. Not a piece of what we loved and prized. Even the toy train that belonged to you and your brother's little rocking horse. They didn't even let us keep our names. We walk through the streets, marked like cattle, with numbers around our necks. That would not be so bad if I were with your father in the same house. Not even the little one may stay with me. I was never so alone in my life. You're still small, and you can hardly understand. So many are pressed together in one room. Body against body, you carry the suffering of the other and feel the full pain of your own loneliness. My boy, are you healthy and learning your studies? No one sings you to sleep now. Sometimes in the night, it seems that I can feel you next to me. And just think, when we see each other again, we will not understand each other. You've long ago forgotten your German in Sweden, and I can't speak Swedish at all. Won't that be strange? If only it already were, then I'd suddenly have a grown son. Do you still play with tin soldiers? I'm living in a real barrack. There's no sun, nor leaves and trees. I'm a nurse here for the children, and it's nice to help and comfort them. Sometimes I stay awake with them at night. The little lamp doesn't give much light. I sit and guard their rest. And to me, every child is a little piece of you. My thoughts then fly to you, and nevertheless, I am happy that you are not here. And I would gladly suffer 1,000 torments if I could pay for your childhood happiness that way. It is late now, and I want to sleep. If I could only see you for a moment. But I can do nothing except write letters, full of longing, never to be sent.
Hello, my name is Sandra Dixon, and I am one of the directors of The Last Flight of Peter Gyns. The film tells the story of a boy who by the age of 16 had written 5 novels, produced 170 drawings and paintings, and walked to the gas chamber at Auschwitz. When our film team saw Peter's art for the first time, we knew his imagination, brilliant, prescient, and stunningly vivid, was best epitomized by his drawing of a red spaceship. And we realized we had to think like Peter. In his mind, the red spaceship is not stationary, it flies. So animation became a tool to tell the story. I've selected a sequence from the beginning of the film that depicts the power and hope found in Peter's imagination.
Peter was born in the year 1928, and I was born 2 years later, 1930. We were teasing each other. Sometimes I was also teasing him. And when he teased me, I wept all very often. He called me, in Czech, it's called slečna brečna. And I could translate it into English, Missy Sissy. After he finished his elementary school, Jewish elementary school in Prague, my parents put him into a school for exceptional children. It lasted only a year, and then when the occupation of the Nazis began, he was thrown out because of his Jewish origin. His favorite studies were always sciences, but I can say it with my whole heart because he loved to draw. He had always a notebook with him and some pencils. Peter read many books, but in his young age, very young, he preferred the books of Jules Verne. And I think that he read perhaps all the books Verne wrote. Jules Verne, for example, wrote a novel in 80 days around the world. Peter wrote a novel in 1 second around the world.
I'd like to conclude with one of my favorite drawings and writings from Peter. Thank you for inviting Peter Gens into your lives.
You will hear 2 arias adapted from the chamber opera Echoes from the Darkness, Messages from the Terezin Diaries of Peter and Eva Gintz by composer John Califra, who wrote the music for the film you just saw. We'll be presenting the world premiere of the opera in its entirety next year on Kristallnacht. Here is a message for our audience from the composer.
I'm John Califra. I'm the composer responsible for a couple of the vocal pieces you'll hear tonight. The ones that adapted texts from the diary of Peter Gens and his sister, Hava Pressburger. I'm not going to talk about the music, but I'm going to talk about Peter. I was unfamiliar with his story until I was brought in by Sandra Dixon to score her film, The Last Flight. I found that story deeply affecting and inspiring. And through the years, I would be finding myself returning to the diary again and again, but especially over the last few years. And that, because like many of us, we found the last few years, the political situation, the assaults on democracy, the assaults on liberalism, to be deeply upsetting. And as individuals, there's really little or nothing we can do about it, except to try and find ways to deal with it personally. And I found in the pages in the writings of what was a 12-year-old boy, and then other writings over the few years until he was murdered. I found great comfort and inspiration in those. And I hope that at the very least, because of what I'm saying, that people who are unfamiliar with the story go out of their way to learn about it, because there's a depth of humanity in the writings of that boy and of his sister too, that tell us something about the power of our humanity in the face of adversity that is deeply valuable and important, and uniquely so. So, I hope you're finding the evening enjoyable, and I want to thank everyone who's been involved in this to put this evening together, and I hope you're enjoying it.
already been.
Here
I am honored to take part in this important evening commemorating the artists who perished in the Holocaust. Art is unique, uplifting, part of the human spirit. In Terezin, it was the barrier against despair. You will not find it anywhere else in nature. People say that this is one of the signs that human beings are more developed. I feel that life of plants and animals is similar to that of humans. They too experience youth and old age, and day-to-day struggle for life. But human beings are also capable of an evil-minded, planned kind of cruelty that you will not find among animals or plants. I hope that the spirit that makes us capable to create art will overcome the cruelty and brutality that is, unfortunately, also part of human spirit.
Erwin Schulhoff, a student of Debussy and Max Reger, became well known internationally throughout the music world as both a pianist and prolific composer. His highly successful career was cut short by the Nazi invasion. You'll hear several movements from his divertissement for oboe, clarinet, and bassoon. Pavel Haas, a student at Janacek, composed symphonic, vocal, and chamber music as well as cinema and theater scores. Pavel Haas wrote at least 8 compositions at Terezin, of which only a few survived. We are closing the program tonight with selection from 7 songs in folk style, which he composed prior his deportation to Terezin.
You don't want me, I don't care. Heaven knows it's your affair. I will shed no tears for you. There's other girls aplenty. On the hill on one today, and take from 4 and 20. they small, are the most dear. When such a gift is lost, no one can replace it, not with gold, precious stone, riches unknown. Turtle doves are calling, courting in the oak tree. Johnny's lovely horses grazing yonder green lane. That's where I shall join him. I shall join him. Look, the doves are preening, pecking pretty plumage. Why should we not also bill and coo like they do?